9-to-5. I
If
can
you
do
can
this.
afford all the plastic surgery, you probably don't have a 9-to-5.
Yes, fair enough. Good point.
Somebody else is working for you.
So another cool thing, Rich, you haven't been in the industry that long, because I remember when, again, so full disclosure, Richie's part of our team now, and he works out of our office in Portsmouth. But before that, we were friends for 15 years before you, it been 5 years you've been in the industry?
It's approaching 7 now.
Wow, it goes fast.
Welcome to Stop Whining About Real Estate. Join us as we chat, sip, banter, and wine with the best in the biz. Grab a glass of your favorite vino, sit back, relax, and let's wine together.
Hey, everybody. This is Emmanuel St. Germain from Stop Whining About Real Estate podcast. I did remember the show name this time. On our last show, I forgot it.
It's your lucky red coat.
I am wearing a sporty red coat, but first let me introduce Mrs. Green Christmas.
Oh, geez.
Sarah Biernbaum. We've got a good friend of ours on the show today. He's a friend of mine first. He's now a coworker, and he's our guest, Richard, a.k.a. Richie Gehrlein, who was, first of all, do you know Richie was a stud wrestler in high school?
I did not.
Way back. Going
Way back.
So, Richie, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Wait, so did you guys know each other back then?
No, we didn't. Richie's a lot older than I am, I think.
Whoa, settle down. No. It's been, 20 years now? About 20?
We've been friends. So we have a mutual best friend, Austin. And so we met through him. This is right before I moved down. So this was 2002, 2003, something like that. Yeah. So
we just have to check the year he was on Survivor.
So Austin was on the show Survivor, and it was pretty funny, and he was actually the first person to ever quit. So we both got a lot of flack out of that. Well, you know what they do though in these shows, what they don't tell you about is how much they edit, and the narrative of the story is based on populism, and it's based on what's going to sell. Like it has nothing to do with reality TV, which is what it is. Mm-hmm. And so like he had 3 different staph infections in his legs, and they didn't talk about it. And he's like, I got to get off the show. But like, if you look at his legs now, other than the fact that he's out of shape, they've got, the funny part is that we know he's going to listen to this.
Oh,
so he's going to go off. But so he's got like 3 holes in his leg. Yeah. I mean, they're not holes anymore, but
the truth is, they missed the mark. He should have been on The Real World. Like, he would have been the most dynamic character The Real World has ever seen, because, And
he's not much of a survivor.
No. I mean, he was without a mosquito net. I'm surprised he 18 days? I'm surprised he made it a lot. 2 days. But yeah, he's not an outdoorsy person at all.
No.
But he would have been great on Real World.
So Richie and Austin grew up together in New Hampshire, and now Richie's preparing himself to do what? You're gonna try 50-50? What's the balance of the up north versus coming down south here?
Yeah, I mean, ideally 50-50. So, but the last few months getting my bearings, with the mothership being down here, it gives me a reason to be here more, which has been pleasant. Obviously, this has been a little bit of a setback, but
for those of you not watching, Richie just had a torn ACL reconstruction, which I can completely feel and empathize, as I've had a handful of those myself.
Yeah. But we're 6 weeks post-op, so we're on the back 9, I guess is how you would say it. But yeah, so ideally, I think it would be great to spend the entire winter down here, and then
for a lot of reasons.
I love New England in the summer, but I mean, I don't know I think Florida's more of a long-term play for me. I'd like to be here annually eventually, but that's just going to take some time just because my roots are there. Everything's so embedded, but something that could happen over time.
So let's talk. So let's actually talk about the your knee surgery for a second and how it relates to work, because most professions, a sideline like that costs you a ton of money, and you can't can't do anything about it. See, Sarah's laughing because she's starting to understand that when I ask questions, there's like a setup.
Yeah.
It's
She's
just,
like-
I know you so well. I know your brain before your brain starts working.
Well,
Gears grinding. Or
it's
is it
not.
actual
It's just
thoughts?
like, well, what do I want to get out of this answer? Here's what I'm going to do. But it is that's what this is all about. It's formulate a question. That's why I say I would have been a really good attorney. Put you up on the stand. I'm going to get you to say exactly what I want you to say. But anyways, what I wanted to
Never
talk
too late.
about. No, I'm not interested.
Okay.
But what I wanted to say was that, and again, I'm going off my personal experience as well from having my own set of knees redone.
You only have 2.
I know, but I've done them. It's so brutal.
Yeah.
But we're really fortunate to be in a workforce in an environment where you can still make money doing what we do, whether you're able to walk or not, knee issues and stuff like that.
Yep.
So talk a little bit about your experience right after surgery, and were you able to work? Were you not? Like, how did it work?
Yeah. So, I mean, it was a pretty humbling experience, to be honest. But to your point,
Is it your first major surgery?
Yes. Well, I mean, I fractured my elbow in wrestling, but it wasn't anything like this. I mean, I was still functioning. I was in a sling, but this put me right down. But I'd say within 2 to 3 days, I was up and running on calls on my laptop, working, closing loans, baby. It's funny. I was in physical therapy, and I said to my PT doctor, I said, because it's such a paramount piece of recovery is you need to be in there almost every day. The micro movements they have you doing is all about being better. And like for the first 3 to 4 weeks, I was saying to her, I'm like, I don't know how somebody that goes to work 9 to 5, that has to be there, is making time for this to have the same outcome that I'm having because of my flexibility. And it's true. Like people will they'll slack on it and they won't go. And it ends up being either a longer recovery or they just won't fully recover. So, I mean, that was literally what I was saying to her. And I mean, Sydney Rutledge, professional physical therapy in Medford, awesome. She's actually caring for a firefighter friend of mine at the same exact time, and we're both doing great.
Nice. One of the things that bothered me about it, to be honest with you, and this is going to be a knock on our insurance industry and how insurance. I'm in a different position now, and if I had to do that, I would go every day. But at that time, the last time I've had them, you're like, okay, well, your insurance is going to cover X, so we're going to go 3 this week, 3 that week, and then we got to slow you down to 2. But like that may not be what the body needs, but that's what your insurance is willing to cover. So you're limited by that. So I do feel for people on top of that. Yeah. Never mind having a 9 to 5, and you're not necessarily able to do it. I also think, by the way, that's why a lot of people don't do the surgery, because an ACL is something that you can live with. Yeah. It doesn't affect your normal everyday life.
Most people say, what is the recovery like? I can't afford to do that. It's not necessarily a cost. It's a time thing. I have kids. I can't because of work. I can't afford to be out of commission for 3 months. Can't happen. Not happening.
Yeah. Absolutely. Surprisingly, it doesn't work that way with the plastic surgeons down here. So everybody's able to find a way to, I can be out. I don't have to drive. I can do this. If you can
afford all the plastic surgery, you probably don't have a 9 to 5.
Yes, fair enough. Good point.
Somebody else is working for you.
So another cool thing, Rich, you haven't been in the industry that long, because I remember when, again, so full disclosure, Richie's part of our team now, and he works out of our office in Portsmouth. But before that, we were friends for 15 years before you, it been 5 years you've been in the industry?
It's approaching 7 now.
Wow, it goes fast.
Yep.
It does.
In the industry as we know it now.
I mean, I'm wearing a red jacket. If I had a big white beard, I would look old.
Santa Claus.
Yeah. I know.
No, you have it for Christmas. There you go. Bingo.
Oh, boy.
So so you know what? For our New Mexico friends, the green and reds, they call that like I think they call it Christmas. And for
that's what they call it everywhere in the country.
No. These are chilies. They put chili on like the chilies I guess, on everything. And so some people like the reds, some people like the greens, or do you like Christmas, which is the combination? And it's on everything. They put it on ice cream. They got it on. That's a joke. But
Spicy ice cream.
It's a staple.
Yeah.
But all right. But back to, so it's been about 7 years.
Yeah.
Emmanuel is so excited to have you on. He has so much he wants to talk about.
Well, no,
We have nothing but time.
Yeah. Thanks, Sarah. Don't kill my buzz here. All right. So been in it for 7 years.
Yeah.
Why'd you get in it? What do you think so far?
So I would say I've been in it for 7 years in the industry as we know it now. I did it a little bit in 06, 07 when it was a little bit of the wild, wild west, which you remember. I broke off, went into the hospitality, opened a bunch of restaurants, nightclub, juice bars, all that stuff. And what I learned from that industry coming over to this industry was, I was always on 7 days a week. I'm getting calls, the walk-ins down, this, that, the other, employees texting you at 11 o'clock at night, 7 days a week. It doesn't even matter. You're on. But coming from that industry to this industry, that was an asset for me because so many people just simply don't know the ins and outs of what we do. So instead they fear it and they stress about it. And if they're in like a process of a closing or under contract or whatnot, like one question that you or I could answer in a matter of 30 seconds, they could spend the entire night stressing about it and have a horrible night's sleep, go to work stressed out. And there are some LOs in our world that just simply will only get back to you 9 to 5. Maybe it's on the broker side or maybe that's just how people operate. But so I came over from that world back into mortgages, and it was so eye-opening, like what I could do for people and just being on and answering questions and be willing to communicate. And it was helpful for me because, the timing of it too, because I had come back in and we came right into COVID almost a year later. So, I came from hospitality, had a huge network, and then all of a sudden we had the pandemic and it was like refi boom. So it helped thrust me in. I didn't have that immediately downturn where you're just grinding trying to find clients. So it was helpful. And then it felt almost like I wasn't working. You know what I mean? I wasn't going
you were
somewhere.
Cheating.
Yeah, right. And it was like we were talking about earlier. It's I'm not going into an office, especially during the pandemic. I'm closing loans. I'm making money. I'm working when I, am at my laptop. But most importantly, I didn't feel. I wasn't stressed about being somewhere, taking care of something, fixing something, and I was just handling any questions that my clients had. And it was just kind of freeing, you know what I mean? And it never, if somebody texts me at 10 o'clock on a Sunday night, it doesn't bother me to respond to them within seconds.
Yeah.
But
I will say this. So like I have one transaction right now that some of them, I don't know how brokers do it. And not being in control is it's such a fearful thing, like we're so used to, like you've spent the majority of your career or all of your career in a retail shop.
Yep.
And, I have a transaction that we have to broker and it's just not easy. We're dealing with this bank that I tell you, like when you want to talk about companies that are not run well, they do not understand systems and processes. They don't understand literally, it's unbelievable how this country is so great and we have so many organizations that are run like dog shit. And people can't get out of their own way. If you deviate off of one little inch off whatever is their normal, standard work procedure, all of a sudden they don't know what to do. Mm-hmm. And people's ability to solve problems is really, really bad. What I like with Rich's background is the entrepreneurial mindset. Because as an entrepreneur, okay, great. You are responsible for your own success. You make as much money as you want or live a life that you want, right? We just had a guest on last week. Although it was half hour ago, but we just had a guest on who's at a stage in his career where he doesn't want to overwork. He's financially in a different position than you and I are, and that's totally cool. provide great service at the times you want to provide. And it's not that for most people, like it's not that they won't answer the phone when they're getting calls at odd hours. It's more about the additional effort to go meet new business, right? And I think that individuals like that or other individuals, this is where Sarah's role can become really crucial. And we're excited to have Sarah start putting more business development representatives and managers into offices. And we've already identified one potential individual for the office that you're technically out of, although you're down here half the time. But, Sarah, talk a little bit about that and how you think a business development manager or rep or whatever the title that we want to give them will help entrepreneurial spirits like Rich.
Well, I think there's only so much one person can do, right? So if you take the example with you and I, you had a book of business. You've been doing this for 20 years. You had people that were calling you. You had reputation. You had relationships. You weren't looking to necessarily pass those off, just like probably Rich or your dad. They have these deep-seated relationships and they have their reputation, but there's only so many hours in a day and there's only so many days a week, and you're already doing probably the max for the most part of what you want to do. So then you take a biz dev person and you insert them in a branch. So, it would cover the two of you or the three of you, and they would go out and find new business. It's not to say that you guys can't handle more loans as a loan officer, but it's the nurturing the relationship, the building the relationship, getting in the doors and kind of bridging that gap. So if they're doing all of the legwork as far as going out and finding it, getting it, harnessing it, nurturing it, bringing it in, which is not always the shortest process because sometimes it takes a minute, especially with producers. They already have their relationships. So being able to go do that and then just delivering the buyers to you, you can handle everybody that would be doing this can handle more applications, more loans. Plus we have, the operations behind us to do processing, loan partners, underwriting, closing, all of that stuff. But all of the other work it took to get that buyer to call you, they're taking off your plate and going to find new. So while you're still nurturing all of the relationships that you have, they're finding new. And it's just a matter of delivering buyers into your lap, which most people would say 1,000% yes, absolutely.
So all we have to do is just take biz dev people and put them into an office. It's that simple, or is there a process to it?
No, it's definitely.
Can I just snap my fingers
I wish.
and boom, everybody's got one?
No, I wish, because then I would do that and I would have biz dev everywhere.
Okay.
No, I do think that there is a special kind of person to be biz dev. I think, it's got to be somebody that's likable, but I also think it needs to be somebody that can get into the doors and be welcome and invited places, but also people want to stay and people want to have come back. And also that person who is the biz dev, while being likable and being able to talk to people, make them feel comfortable, figuring out what they love about their business, where their struggles are. The biggest key is they have to have all of those things, plus not be afraid to ask for business. I think there's this misconception that just because somebody, and I'll take me for example, if I'm sitting with an agent, just because they know that I work for a lender does not necessarily signal their brain to say, oh, you know what? Yeah, I'll definitely give you my next buyer. Right. And that doesn't naturally happen. And I think when I was new, I think I expected it to, because I was like, well, why else am I here? And it took some trial and error and understanding that there needs to be an exchange of words of, I am looking to do business with you. What does that opportunity look like? And, when can we make that happen? And being a little bit forward about it. If the answer is no, there's several ways you can go about it. You can cut and run and go do something else. You can keep them in your database and drip on them and revisit, because maybe they will have a problem with the person that they are working with and, want to give you a shot. There's ways of asking them to be their second or third, or figuring out what they love about the person, where they're having some issues, and maybe finding out if there's an in that direction. But you need to be a likable person. You need to be a go-getter, not afraid of work whatsoever, persistent, and definitely have that ask for the business piece. And if you jumble all of that into one person and they love rinse and repeat and doing it every day and really going with it, a really positive attitude and a lot of energy, you can find yourself a biz dev.
I mean, I think.
So it is as easy as snapping my fingers.
Totally.
But I mean, I think, you kind of alluded to it a little bit. I think in our industry, you have to be able to deal with a little bit of rejection and then be able to go back. So you have to have that thick skin, knowing that even if they don't give you that first deal, or even if they say no, how am I going to keep going at them? How am I going to keep wearing them down? How am I going to get that next deal?
Or even how am I going to go after another producer?
Yeah, totally. And I think, when I was coming down, making my decision to come over to Choice Mortgage, when we sat down, I was meeting with everybody. That was, I think I said to you, I said, this is my least favorite part about what I do. Mm-hmm. And if I can honestly have somebody like a Sarah doing that every day, just kind of continue and do it. I do it when I can, but to your point, there's times when I just can't. And, the follow through could be better, but I might not have time, or I can't get to it, or maybe I can't get them to lock down a time. But having that consistently, if it generates one buyer a month, that is massive.
Do you know many other companies that do this?
And that's where I was going next. I've worked for some massive companies, and the company I just came from, I loved them. I loved everybody I worked with. I loved what I was doing, who I was doing it for. The CEO was great, but it just didn't have all of this. And you've seen me. We spent quite a bit of time one-on-one getting used to the operation here because of all the tools you have in place, which a lot of LOs coming from other companies aren't used to. And that's even companies doing 30 or 40 billion a year. They're not providing these services. Where we come from in those circumstances, you're the LO, you're the biz dev, you're putting the file together, you're sending it in. There's a lot of work, a lot of hats that you have to wear. So it's been an adjustment, but a great one. You know what I mean? And
the challenge Rich is explaining is that our focus is trying to get the loan officer out of a file, and trying to really the term that it's not just for LOs. For me, everything in the organization needs to really be about highest and best use, and making sure that we have the best people doing the right things. And it's just a lot easier for rinse and repeat. One word that we like is sweat, same way every time. And really, that's one of the adjustments is because I remember when we had a discussion early on, and I'm like, well, tell me about your process. What do you currently do? And I was like, 3/4 of that, our ops is going to handle all that for you. And the idea behind it is that 3/4 of the time that we're taking away from you, you can choose one of two things. You can go out and try and get more sales, or you can enjoy life or not stress as much, whatever it is. Each person, it's up to them. And I think it's important. So when we decided to, it wasn't even a decision. When we saw the success that we were having with Sarah, her and I got together, and I said, all right, here's what I want you to do. I said, I want you to build out what is it going to look like, because I'm on proof of concept. Anybody can tell you anything they want, but when you got the numbers to back them, now it's different. Sarah, what was your production in the last 12 months?
The last 12 months? 28 million.
Okay. So call it 25 to 30 million, right? First of all, that's better than most loan officers. So if I can get her or someone like her or next business development person, let's say they're not as good as Sarah. Let's say they only add 15 million, 20 million to an office. That's for most loan officers in today's marketplace is the equivalent of hiring 2 loan officers. Mm-hmm. And so for us, the idea was, all right, this is a value add that we can add to branches. And the reason I was smiling when Sarah was chatting earlier is because I was setting her up to explain the concept that the piece, all great ideas are fine until you try to implement them, until you ask somebody to do work. And then they're like, that's a great idea. I really love that one, but where am I going to find this person? Who's going to interview? Who's going to train them? And so the concept of using as a carrot to dangle for a branch, for a new branch or an existing branch, the ability for Sarah to hire, so let her hire that person, let Sarah train that person, and then lastly, manage that person. So imagine you're a branch manager out there and you did $40, $50 million with your group of LOs, 100 million, doesn't matter. The number one thing that even if you give them a great idea is they don't want to do the work. So we go, Sarah, you're going to have to do this. So you've got to build it out, because if your branch with my dad, if we don't require you to hire them, you don't have to do the trainings, you don't have to do all that stuff, you're going to say, why not? Hey, this is a great idea. Mm-hmm. Love it. But if I have to stop and spend my time training somebody, no thanks. And again, I would do the same thing. So we're really excited. We think it's going to be a great program. And we think to your point, it's I don't know anyone else that's offering it. So.
Yep. I haven't seen it, and I've been to some pretty big groups over the handful of years. We've been acquired a couple times where I was at, and pretty big outfits, but nothing like that.
Talk about, so that's a good one. So that's something that not many of us, although both you and my dad worked for companies that were acquired, talk about what that's like from a culture standpoint. One thing that's important to me, in fact, I was just speaking with a consultant the other day while we were in Dallas, and he had sold 3 mortgage companies, and he asked, I asked him, I said, tell me, what's the number one advice you would give to me as you structure a company to be sold? He's like, well, are you interested in selling? I go, not at all. But you're supposed to build a company to be sold. That doesn't mean you want to ever sell. And he's like, that's a great question. I was like, I can't believe you asked me this question, right? And I was like, okay, very cool. I'm like, thank you. He's like, I really like the way you think. And,
oh my God.
Our new business partner, Brian, is like, he's looking at me. He's like, I was like, oh, you're really turning me on. And it's like, he's all these in-depth questions. But to me, it's because it interests me, right? Because the way that I like to think, I am trying to solve a problem constantly. And all right, we know culture is a major issue, and we know that acquisitions, I'm not so much interested in selling, but I'm interested in acquiring. And as we acquire people, it's interesting to hear the different things. I know onboarding is really important. I know it's an opportunity for us to get better at it. I'm cognizant of that. So that's on my agenda. But I also want to hear, what was it like being acquired? Because for me, that's something that if we plan on doing in the future, acquiring, I want to make sure that any negative feelings that loan officer had, I want to be proactive and make sure that we avoid that. The company that my dad worked for, almost all those loan officers left 2 years later after their contracts were signed. Like, what an awful investment, to have somebody who only stays there because they're their contracts. I don't want contracts. Not interested in having you sign a contract. It is my job to come to work every day to make your job better, your life better. And if I'm not earning my spot and my seat in wanting you to stay here and be part of our work family, then I'm not doing my job. But talk about your experience of not one but 2 times being acquired. Yeah. And what were some of the highs and what were some of the lows?
So I've seen both sides of it, right? So I've seen, I'll start with the first one, which is the oldest one. You ever hear the saying where you just feel like a blip on the radar of a corporate, massive company? The first one was just like that.
Have you seen my red stapler?
I
believe that's my stapler.
Oh, I can't wait for that to be a clip.
But I was promised this office in the basement.
Oh my God!
Why do I not have the corner office?
But that is my social media.
You gotta just make it.
Yep. Going on a company holiday party as a big repeat video.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Just have that on repeat. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't, I don't feel like it was, for me, it wasn't handled well. I can't speak for anybody else, but I know a bunch of people left. It was just kind of like, you didn't know it was coming. It was very secretive. The CEO wasn't very involved. And even the new company didn't have people very involved. It was just kind of like, here you go, take it or leave it. Training starts here. So I was kind of like, oh, well, I was relatively new to the industry.
Total lack of empathy.
Completely.
Well, they didn't even seem like they were happy to have you there.
Right. And I mean, they bought an $8 billion producing mortgage company. So it wasn't like we were just a small company. We were a big company. So you would have thought that the energy and the emphasis would have been on making sure we're all happy, we're all staying. There was no new contract negotiation. Maybe some of the bigger guys, that were doing that. But the rest of us, it was like, do they even want us here? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I wrote it out. I went through all like the painful, systems learning, proprietary stuff, and just felt like absolutely pointless. Like, why are we changing? But anyway, so I wrote it out for a year and then ultimately said, this just isn't for me. I decided to leave and my manager was very supportive of it. And then, went to a great company, and I still love everybody and still talk to everybody. And, but then the CEO decided he got tired of, managing a company by way of his balance sheet. And it was kind of when you had, margins were shrinking, everything was just getting very hard to exist. And we weren't that big of a company. We're only about 150 people. But what I liked about that was he had an all hands on meeting. He called us all to a hotel and he stood there through the entire time telling us why he chose that company and what was important, and it wasn't the best offer. And he stayed there for the entire day while we were kind of not a full onboarding, but being onboarded. And he also didn't disappear after that day, right? And then the CEO of the new company, he calls us up and he gave every single person in the company his cell phone number. He said, he said, hi, I'm so-and-so. And he just gave us his phone number. He said, that's my cell phone. He goes, don't call me for just no reason at all. He goes, if you need me, call me. And he's a massive company. So it felt really good and really connected in. I was already on some of the systems, so it felt good. But the training was consistent. They had multiple time windows. So if you couldn't make your schedule work to what they presented, there was always time. It was just handled so differently, and they cared. They wanted you. And what I think was probably the most paramount thing for me that made me stay was they let our divisions stay together. You know what I mean? So like I never feared another processor, another underwriter. I knew
had your
everybody.
comforts.
Oh yeah. And we were still able to get things done super fast. People are still picking up phones and having conversations versus, you getting that Friday 4:59 email and you respond in seconds and you don't get a reply until Monday. Yeah. And some of that stuff has existed. So, it was very visible to me, and we were able to continue to operate the way we did. And they still do to this day, and like I said, there's a litany of reasons why I came, but I still have, great regard for the people that I worked for at the previous company.
What I like to hear about that for me is it's leadership, right? Mm-hmm. And leadership is something that goes a really long way. And I love to hear about the company that was acquired and that individual staying with you guys. And it is hard. It's hard when you're being acquired. There's a especially if you're like, these aren't employee-owned companies. So one person is about to get some sort of cash payout, depending on when you sell. Now, at the same token, like people don't, as you said, people don't realize the last couple of years have been really hard on owners of companies and on our balances, our cash balances, and having to invest in companies and not let go of people. But I also love that you're acquiring CEO of that company. I love the hands-on piece. And, one of the things that when we acquired and merged with our partners in New Mexico, going there and being a part of it, there's so many lessons. And I'm the kind of person that I learn from what I do. And I learn from others too. Like I remember you telling me about your onboarding, the things that had gone well. I still know where we're great and where we're not great. And I look at those opportunities and I'm constantly looking to figure out, all right, I know we could improve here. What do we do? Now, part of that improvement process is scale. And when you are at a certain size, there's only so much cash to go around to have so many different positions. Mm-hmm. When you get to a larger company and you do more and more volume, which means you're more, in theory, you're more and more profitable, now you can allocate and say, hey, I want an entire group to be full-time this. I want a whole person whose sole job is the culture liaison of the company to make sure that your first experience never happens. Hey, this deal is going to happen. Here's why it's going to happen. We want to answer your questions. We want to be, I've seen it done so many ways where it could have been. And the amount of money, by the way, here's what baffles my mind of how you would take these two large companies, the amount of money that's exchanged there to not have, like if you don't know what you're doing, to the same point, hire somebody. Hire an outside consultant to come in and say, help us.
I think in a lot of times when there's something like that, they forget about everybody that's involved and they're concentrated on the actual deal. How is this deal going to exchange? How is this going to happen? And it's almost like we've got all these people that we have to onboard and train into our systems. All right, let's just put some stuff on the calendar. They'll figure it out and let's go forward with it. And it becomes more of a transaction almost rather than maybe we should stop for a second and see how they're feeling about it. And not even so much but let's make them feel as comfortable and as welcome as possible. Keep some of the comforts that they love because that's going to make them feel safe and secure about all of this. But in the meantime, let's do our best to make sure that they really feel like we're excited about this and we're excited to have them on board and excited to work with them. I think if you change the feeling part of it, it becomes less transactional. But at the top, you're concerned with the actual deal. You're concerned with getting them trained, getting them up and running in systems. What happens when they get a loan and they don't know where to go or who to go to? Those are the big pieces. And the other little pieces get missed, but those are the important things because it makes everybody that's playing underneath part of all of that works. Because if you go through something like that and lose everybody afterwards, it was not a success at all. It was a failure because what you were going after was not the ownership. It was the people that made up the worth of the company.
You got to be true to yourself too, though. So, you have to know who you are. You have to know what kind of company you are. And in our merger with New Mexico, there was a couple of people who left already. And they were operational people. And I don't know them very well, but I can tell you why they didn't succeed or why they weren't interested. We're a highly structured company. And for me, I love that because that's who I am. But what that creates is efficiencies. And there's certain people that weren't working as hard because they didn't have oversight. And all of a sudden you have someone who has a little bit more oversight and they're like, oh, I can't get away with, playing Nintendo half the day. Like, no, not on my dime, you can't.
I can't get away with boating on Wednesday and golfing on Tuesday.
The seat's getting real hot.
Yeah, well, but I mean, it's like, come on, really? Like, you're not being fair. You're not being, a good employee when you do that. So if you don't want to belong to a culture of hardworking people who care, because you can't tell me you care about a client if you're not working very hard. If you're sitting there passive, and so if you don't care about your clients, that means you don't care about the employees, that means you don't care about our referral partners. You and I as loan officers, and Sarah as a business development director, love, we work really, really hard. It's an inside joke. But so I said manager one time, and she's like, I'm a director. I'm like, sorry.
I just said change the title. It's not correct.
I know. You can change mine. It says Chief Emotional Officer. Deal with all the whining. But we work so hard to go get these referral partners.
Very.
Right? No, but think about it.
No, we do.
Okay? You work your butt off to go get a relationship. That relationship sends us a client. Now, meanwhile, we as loan officers are doing our thing. We've handled the client. The client's now in operations. And that person is taking their sweet old time because they don't want to work that hard.
Absolutely not.
You'd be pissed.
Yep.
Right?
Has to go.
So it's all, we all play in the same sandbox in that way, which is why for us, it's important to be structured. It's important, and you gotta care. Like, you'd be surprised. Caring is such a hard trait or quality to find in people. And like, I'll be the absolute first to admit it. I am an awful person when I interview people. For many reasons. Number
You're
one,
awful in the same way that I can be awful. We give people the benefit of the doubt.
I give people the benefit of the doubt.
And we expect people to work
I assume
the way that
you
we
work as hard as I do, which isn't going to happen. And so, because everybody wants something different, and like it's not money for me. Like, I like money, but it's not about money. It's constantly progressing. When I was in Dallas this past week, and I went up to one of the CEO of the whole thing, of the organization, and I said to her, I said, Jody, I'm a little bored.
Oh,
like,
boy.
You got to put me in a different room, introduce me to some people. Like,
I'm in a room with people that are not teaching me anything. You got to move me.
It's not about not teaching me anything, because we did walk away with some great things. But what it is that at the end of the day, here was my biggest thing.
Okay.
People were the same problems. We meet every 6 months. By the way, our next conference is in Boston in September, which I'm really excited about, which will be cool. Now, that being
it's my
said,
birthday, I'll go. I'm just kidding.
September baseball.
Yeah, we got the Yankees in town to visit the Red Sox. It's going to be great. But my point is that the problems that they had 6 months ago,
Oh, here we go.
were the same freaking problems we had to talk about this time. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, what did you do the last 6 months? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like somebody who's overweight and says 6 months later, oh, I'm still overweight. Well, what'd you do about it? Have you been working out?
Challenge.
Have you been working out? Did you diet? Did you see a doctor? Like, what have you done to try and improve? Oh, why would I do that? Because you can't expect to get different results doing the exact same thing. You got to put a plan in place. Anyways, it was really eye-opening, and it goes back to leadership. There are some people who can lead organizations, and there are others who can't. And it was very eye-opening. But I'm glad to see that you got to experience some great leaders. And now you're dealing with a little more of a Napoleon
What was her
style.
reaction when you told her you were bored
this weekend?
What's that?
What did she do to spark your interest this weekend after you told her you were bored?
We took that two different ways.
Yeah, I'm hearing it two different ways, too.
Yeah, so I went the very PC route. I wanted to know her reaction to your comment. He wanted to know what she did to spark your interest.
Yeah. Oh, no. Let's just say that's a real tough sell. So doesn't matter what I said. So on our so the way that it worked was essentially, we're paying members, and so they understand and they want to connect the right people. And in fact, that's what I was saying. At the very last day we were there, I met someone that was really interesting, and then she had also said, "Hey, you really should talk to this individual. He can really coach you up and do some stuff." Because that's what to me, like I said, you guys both know me on a personal level outside of our working relationships. Boredom is like the worst thing for me. I can only go to the beach for 30 minutes, an hour, then I'm like, all right, what else we got?
Yeah.
You're like that too, right? Yeah. I have to keep moving. I have to listen to a podcast. I've got to do something. But all right. So Rich, a few more questions. I want to talk business real quick. Let's get to how do we prevent as loan officers from being replaced by AI?
Ooh, good one.
There's always that risk, but I think to answer your question, you have to embrace it. You have to use it, and you can't.
Great answer.
You can't be afraid of it. When you came in my office earlier today and told me about what you were demoing right now, I was like, oh, when can I get a look at this?
So it's a company that we're demoing that is going to cut down the amount of time on refinances. And in terms of, if Janine says she's interested in refinancing, it literally takes within less than a minute, in seconds, puts together the entire proposal, which would have taken Rich and I manually to do it, would have been like 30 minutes of our prep time.
I was doing it when you came in the office earlier for a client up in Palm Beach Gardens. I sent my title attorney a request for an estimate just to make sure I'm as accurate as possible. Took that data, took our company fees, took their data, put it all together.
Or Realtor.com.
But it could have been even more than 30 minutes because you're waiting on title to respond to you and get that back to you too.
Yep. Thankfully, in this case, they were quick. But I mean, that was an hour of my day right there, just putting that together for this one client that we could do in 30 seconds.
So what I love as owning a company is to, if I can do this on behalf of all my loan officers, what a value add we get to provide.
Huge.
Yeah. So it was, but there was a lot of stuff like that. And the other thing that was really cool, there's a lot of AI stuff that people are using in the closing departments in terms of selling loans. Like this, that your consumer doesn't understand how much back end stuff there is and how much it takes in terms of where loans go and what's Fannie and just there's so many different things that go into it. But AI is on the forefront. So I love that you're embracing it rather than fighting it. I do still think that. Oh, by the way, speaking of AI, so I had so today the Choice Mortgage scenario desk thing. So I was having a problem. Okay, the problem was that when I would type in www dot, it wouldn't connect. But if you remove the www dot and you just put in the URL that I wanted minus the W's, it was working. So our marketing team said I must have messed up doing something in our forwarding at GoDaddy. So they give me the instructions. I still can't figure it out. So I go on GoDaddy's little chat feature, and I will give a props because it was unbelievable. Their AI bot that was talking to me was so fast, perfect, so clear. I literally, I said in the AI, I said, please send this review. This was a fantastic tech experience from someone who is not a techie. This is I was able to follow their instructions.
Was it more something like this? Please send review. Click.
Get up close.
The heavy thumb texter or typing out. But no, it was really good. And I think that if we start embracing more of it, and we just have to stay ahead of it. Yeah. I still think people want a human connection.
Absolutely.
So, and people want a sounding board. So I think that, but the loan officers who don't embrace it are going to fall behind big time.
Well, I think everybody who doesn't embrace it is going to fall behind in every industry.
But even just using that tool for that time that took me an hour to put something together, in a matter of seconds, I have an hour to call a client and give them that one-on-one kind of feel that they need, and I'm still utilizing AI. You
can go do more human things while AI is taking care of the.
Well, while you're chatting with that client, it's already prepared 5 more presentations for you.
Exactly.
That's the beauty of it. This thing is, I so hope it works the way the demo worked. So I am now about to beta test it. But.
So I have a question for you. If it's working like that, I imagine it's only as good as the data that it has access to, right? So
the way that it works, yes. So for you, it's a little bit different because we don't know what data you have with our firm. So for us, the way that it works is they send you a CSV file, and you've got to have all the different data points. And so we'll have to extract that data from our operating software. So we'll see how far back what we have. Yeah. Just like when you're using any pricing engine, the more fields you're missing, the harder or it might miss on data. So we'll see how it works. The only thing I don't like is I got to sign a 12-month contract, which I'm going to try and negotiate, and it's a certain amount of money up front and all that good stuff. But that being said, it's well worth the investment if it works. So we're going to beta test it over the next 30 days, and if it works, I'll sign up for everybody right away.
Yeah, sounds great.
Yeah. All right. So AI. What else do you want to talk about? Sarah, what do you want to know about Richie?
Keep it clean.
Work-wise?
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't think I knew that you've only been in the industry for 7 years.
Yeah.
Which I think is kind of cool because you seem like a very seasoned pro.
Yeah, it's, I love what I do, it's just, I came from for lack of a better phrase, a thankless industry.
Yeah, hospitality's tough. I came from hospitality. It's very tough, but it teaches you a lot and it prepares you for pretty much anything.
And I enjoyed it and I was good at it and I could have kept going, but I just decided I didn't want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
There's just something about, you putting somebody in a home that maybe didn't think they could afford a home or helping somebody because they had a tax bill or something and they needed to do a refi and get cash out or anything that just they're so appreciative. The gratitude is real. Whether they know how hard we work behind the scenes or not, you just can tell the difference. Sure. And I'm working with my mind. And
I love problem solving.
Totally.
But when they it's true. Like as an LO, you really have to. And I love when another LO can't get it done, and then we get it done.
Yeah.
That's you too.
Yeah, I love it
because we're competitive. It's a satisfaction. Like I win.
Yeah.
I got the belt.
It's an ego thing.
I got the Santa Claus belt.
Feed the egos.
I have put some wild loans together to get a client to where they need to be. I mean, I'm talking like.
What's your wildest?
Oh, I've got another product. Wait till you see this other product that's coming in.
It was funny. We have this thing called net tangible benefit in our industry that you can't do a refinance for someone if it doesn't meet the net tangible. So I put it in, and the rate was higher than what they currently had, but I put it in with a buy down, and then we also have the refinance lender credit from when we'll be able to do the refi, and then basically I brought it all together, and underwriting's like no net tangible benefit. I go, why not? And we literally just mapped this whole thing out. And what happened was their servicer was doing their Florida property taxes wrong. So they weren't escrowing their property taxes correctly for a year. So they were going to have to basically give them an adjustment, to bring their escrow account up. And it was going to drive their payment up by like $1,500 a month. And it was a big number. So everything I created was going to keep their payment within reason. And we got it done. Like we won.
This is what we call LO geek out.
Yeah. And the best part about it is we're going to do a refinance for them in like a month or two. Their rate's going to go down by like almost a full %. They're still going to have a year left on the buy down to get back towards their principal. I mean, it's like a dream scenario. But it was so many different things that came together. And like if you don't have a vision for it, like you're just missing it.
Well, also you care.
Yeah.
You wanted to get this done, whether it was winning, whether it was the client, whether it was both combined. Like you cared enough because you were like, I am going to figure this out. I know there's got to be a way. Let me go to work on this for us, and I'm going to get this done. It
was wild. I mean, I fought with them. My regional got involved. I mean, we had to get multiple extensions, but we got it done. That's
awesome.
It was worth it. I'll show you this spreadsheet. You'll appreciate it.
No, I definitely want to see it. Well, listen, Richie, we're going to wrap up. Yeah. We're going to make sure that all your contact information are in the show notes. So if any clients want to work with you, any real estate agents want to work with a state champion wrestler, bionic knee.
We need to see some of those VHSs.
He does. He's a big boater. We didn't even talk about boating. Oh, so did you know this? Listen to this. Listen to this fun fact Richie told me today. Wow. So in September, when I fly up there, he's going to pick us up at the airport by boat.
Yep.
Can I go?
Exactly. No, you're not invited.
Boober.
Why? What do you mean I'm not invited?
You're not invited. Literally at the airport, I can get off a plane at the airport and hop on Richie's boat.
Yep.
I mean, is that not going to be like the coolest thing ever?
Right.
We're not cool at all because I'm not there.
Right in Boston Harbor.
Boston Harbor, straight over.
Oh boy,
it's going to be fun.
It's good. Yeah, I'm pumped it's up there. Yeah, it'll be fun.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being on, Richie.
Yeah, happy to be.
Okay, that's enough whining for one day. We are so happy that you could join us today on Stop Whining About Real Estate. So please, not only listen, but subscribe, follow us, download, share, and if you're feeling it, give us a 5-star review. Hey, and if you'd like to be a guest on the show, please email stopwhining@choicemortgage.com. Thanks so much.